Hello, I'm Jenna Lynn Roberts, and today I want to talk about the tens of the Tarot. We're going to start with the Major Arcana, of course, with the Wheel of Fortune. So, one thing I love to think about with the Wheel of Fortune is it's a spinning wheel. And if you read the book Chaos by James Glake, I hope I say that right, he talks about how the butterfly effect is not actually the idea of a butterfly flaps its wings in Asia and it affects a tidal wave in America. It's actually from a diagram where they would pour too much water into a barrel system that's going on a cycle, and the barrel, like you have at a water wheel, and the water wheel gets too much water at the top. And if it gets too much water at the top, it spins one direction for a while, and then the other direction it flips backwards, and it goes back and forth like that. And that's chaos because there's no logic to how many times it goes forward versus how many times it reverses. And when you diagram it, it makes a butterfly image on the scientific graph of that particular water wheel and how fast it was spinning and how many times one direction and then reverse. So the 10 in a sense is abundance. It's an overload. And so it involves some level of chaos. And the Wheel of Fortune is about the nature of change, and change feels a lot like chaos. So this is one way to look at the 10 as this exuberant amount of something. With that, we have the Minor Arcana 10s, which are also in excess of that particular element. So, for instance, the 10 of Wands is when you have too much to do. You have too much on your to-do list and your energy is exhausting because you're overwhelmed with how many things you're doing and actions you have to be taking. Fire element is about energy output and about desire and passion. Maybe you have too many passions. Maybe you have too much passion. And more likely, though, usually with this card, you're just overwhelmed, you have too much going on, and your energy can barely keep up with everything. So that can be seen as a more negative card. When you get that card, you got to take some stuff off your plate. You have to see what is taking a back seat in your life. Nothing wrong with taking a back seat. You're not prioritizing it lesser on a long-term value. You're simply at this moment saying, that cannot be my focus. The benefit of doing too much sometimes can land you in the 10 of Pentacles. So this is that stability of family. It has to do with inheritance, meaning someone who was passed on was able to have so much wealth that they were able to share it with their families when they left. It's a card of having stability of family and home. So the Pentacles represent the earth in your life. You have a secure home. You have a good, solid working car. You have the things you need in your home for abundance beyond survival. You have blessings beyond just getting by. And you might have an excess of cash, of course. It looks like coins, cash in the bank. And you also, people as resources in our lives are reflected in the Pentacles. So you have a beautiful community that is loving and supportive of you. You have access to the resources you need in the humans around you. If you need a lawyer, you know who to call. You need a doctor, you know who to call. You need a plumber, you got your guy or your woman. So it's about having the support structure as well as the income. And this can be in abundance, but with all that, anyone who owns a home knows that comes with great responsibility. You have to make sure it stays in working order. You have to pay the mortgage. You have a routine of spending a lot of money, and so if you suddenly lose that money, it can hurt more than if you weren't making quite as much. So, something to think about. So the responsibility that comes with that card can be heavy. And then on the more psycho-emotional level, we have the Swords and the Cups. And the Swords is probably the scariest card in the deck, is the Ten of Swords, right? Whew, that looks like a bad day. So one way to think about this card, though, is that the Ten of Swords is when you've overused a belief system, a thought process, a coping mechanism past its past its necessity. So this card is about knowing and noticing what it is that you don't need to do anymore. What is it that you can let go of? What is it that you are thinking about, believing in, philosophizing, holding on to, that doesn't serve you anymore? A way for me to look at this card is that when they have children in traumatic situations and they take them out and then they help them overcome their coping mechanisms that seem unhealthy, if they put them back in that situation, those kids actually develop worse coping mechanisms. So it's better to work with the coping mechanisms you got through first, but at some point you're not in that unsafe space anymore. You're not in that system or structure that required you to have that belief. So this is a time when you're ready to pull out of that belief and reassess what you do want to believe and how you do want to respond to life through your thoughts, and therefore which becomes your actions. It looks ugly, but think of it as a surgical removal. My friend Rhea says it's a surgical removal of a part of your mind that no longer serves you. Not physical, surgical, no cutting into yourself. And then we have the heart in abundance. Oh, such joy. Oh, such overwhelm. I've been to Burning Man 6 times, and after my first burn, I was like 10 of cups. This is a 10 of cups place. There's an exuberance of art. There's a community sense of love that is unique. There is an allowance for your full emotional experience. You're allowed to be sad on the playa too. You're allowed to have all the feelings, and it can be very overwhelming. One thing I've been realizing in my own personal recent experience, and I love the tarot because it's always teaching me. I am always learning these cards. I've been doing them since I was 15, and I've always thought of this as a card of joy, allowing in your full joy, which when it's reversed can be really hard. You know, some people, when they feel joy, Brene Brown says that when she feels a lot of joy, she panics and pulls in and says, what's going to go wrong now? Because things can't be this good. A lot of us do that. It's a lack of trust. And so this can be a card of allowing yourself to fully trust an open heart. Open hearts come with healthy boundaries though too. So make sure you find that balance to get to this place. One thing I've been experiencing recently is I'm seeing that to feel full joy, I also need to experience deep sadness and grief, uncomfortable emotions, maybe even my shame at times. It's awkward, but it's offering you the ability to feel the full spectrum of emotions. So now I see this card as, yes, joy, which is to me kind of one of the best feelings we can have. But each of those cups is allowing in that spectrum of emotion across the full range that we can experience. And possibly not to to a certain depth of it, but especially on the positive end of things. And when it's reversed, it might mean that you're struggling to allow yourself to trust and feel the joy. So those are the 10s. And I'd love it if you want to share in the comments your own experience of the 10s and talk about what it is about abundance that's great. What is it about abundance that's burdensome? And knowing that 10s are also a 1, it can be you go through the cycle of 9 and then you have a new beginning with a 1, but carrying with you all the benefits of that last cycle of learning those 9 experiences. So that's another way to think about it. I hope that you will consider signing up and subscribing to my page. I hope that you will go into my presentpathtarot.com and learn a little bit about me and write some comments, share. I would love dialogue. I'm definitely interested in talking tarot anytime. And I also offer lessons in the cards if you are trying to learn them yourself. So I want to end this at exactly 10 minutes. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful week, allowing abundance into your life and cutting out some of those burdens.